Wednesday. Welcome back. We missed you. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in today. We are going to be needle felting a cute little Easter egg bouquet grassy thing for your table. This is what we're making today, and it's just a start of our spring Easter decorations. So you're going to want to make more Easter eggs for the coming weeks also, because we're going to make some fun stuff with them. So today is just a little display. It's going to be fun. We're going to go over some fundamentals and basics that are good no matter what level you are. They're going to be fun. Easter just seems like a really fun theme. So we're going to be doing a few things leading up to Easter. And if you don't celebrate Easter, well, just think spring, and I'm sure that you'll be able to riff off some ideas that we have today. If you're new or if you're seasoned, I hope that you have something to take away. If you're brand new, there's going to be a lot of building blocks today. And if you're seasoned, I'm hoping that maybe you have some little reminders for the next time you show and share with somebody. And we always accept your tips and ideas too. So glad to have you here and hang out with us today. I wanted to keep my Easter eggs this year kind of simple, but you can make your Easter eggs and then go all out with them. Some friends of mine in our group, in our Facebook group, have been sharing some really fun, inspired and inspiring things that they've done with their Easter eggs. So check it out there in Facebook. So you can do all kinds of art on your Easter eggs, or you could turn them into some kind of arrangement, and you can certainly start inserting your bunnies into the arrangement. This is what we're going to build today, and we're going to start with a basic Easter egg, basic decorating, and then I'll show you how we put this little arrangement together. So find a basket or a vessel or something. Today, the themes I want to share are that we're going to how to control our shape, how to needle felt really firm, and how to get a smooth finish. It's one of the most common questions we get is how to get a smooth finish. And so we're going to get to that. And we're going to be making eggs, small eggs about this size. And I'll show you the measurements. They're just a couple of inches, 2.5 inches or so, and maybe 1.5 inches wide, whatever. I'm going to make them small. You can make them any size you want. So I'm going to start with a bit of our core wool. Just to control it a little more, I'm going to go ahead and split the thickness so that you can really control that egg shape. So I'm going to take the piece that's slightly a little more thick, and this is a standard kind of how you roll a ball, but we're going to roll it into an egg. So start with a tube, and what I like to do is pinch this really, really tight, and then I'm going to take the ends and tuck them in. So this is the same way we roll a ball. If you roll it really tight and pinch as you roll, the less air that's in there, the easier it's going to be to make a really firm shape with less amount of needle felting required. So what you'll notice is I'm already tapering one end, and I'm letting one end be a little more bulbous, so a little more rounded, and that means I might scoot that wool down a little bit as I wrap. So just roll it really tight, and it's okay if you just end up with a little tube at the end. Take whatever extra you have and roll it towards the butt of your egg, the bottom of your egg. So when you get to the end, just wrap it really tight. Now I'm going to be using a 36 triangle needle in my righty tool, my wooden needle felting tool, because I want to give myself a really firm egg shape. So notice that the first thing I tack down is the loose end. I just want to get all that down, and then I'm immediately going to start shaping. And then I'll just flip it around so that I can get to my tapered end. And I go right in, you know, you don't have to only go straight down. You can, I like to use this horizon line. The same thing you guys are looking at is what I look at. So I like to use this horizon line as my shaper. So I'm going to go right after what I'm shaping right away. Now mine came out shaped like an egg pretty much right away. And I'm just going to, again, I use this horizon line between, meaning the view, the contrast between my foam and the egg, to help me shape it and help me see, is it going how I want it to go? And when you go in this direction as opposed to just straight down, you're condensing the egg this way, and you won't have like a soggy middle because you're pushing the wool together. So you want to remember to go back and do it from this edge as well. So from the rounded butt and push it towards the middle. And that's going to help it compress this way, not just down. That should help you shape and also firm up your pieces. So this is a pretty good egg shape. Now, if you wanted to make it bigger, like if you want to get fatter, like towards this guy, then now is when you can add the extra wool on top and just add it where you want it. So if we want it around this base, then we would just add it here. Just tack that down and just wrap the excess where you want it. Remember to hold the tension, like don't give up that tension that you put on there just because you add a new piece. You can lay it down and you can roll it, and you can also let it stick off the end a little bit. Tack down all these bits that are sticking up here. Remember to glide your needle this way so that you don't go against it and create a ridge. And then all of the stuff that's sticking off the butt, we'll just tack it down around the edge there. So it can be sticking, you know, straight when you put it on, but round it around. So now keep shaping and firming up your under egg until it's the shape you want and it's really nice and firm. Okay, so I'm sticking with small eggs this time. So you can see these are pretty close. This one just needs more work to get to this place. And now I'm going to cover this with my wool batting. You only need enough of a layer to be able to not see the egg underneath. I'll take this and I want it just a little larger than my egg, wrap it really tightly so I see how much I need, and all I need is a little tiny overlap, just enough of an overlap that I won't have a gap, and I'll pull all of that off. What I like to do then is I'm not going to be using my coarse needle anymore. I'm actually going to start first maybe with a 42 triangle. You could use something a little less fine if you want, like a 40 triangle. And I want that first end that I peeled off there, I'm going to taper that right down. I treat this like shelf paper, meaning you don't want a bunch of air in it. So then I'm just going to go all the way to this part, this join. And if you have too much, then pull it off if it's too bulky. Wrap it all the way around, and I want to get all of this laying down. So as it's going this way, I'm going to run my needle this way and just get that tacked down without a bunch of gap in it. Meaning you don't want a bunch of slack all the way around. Now, the ends. So we have a lot of wool on the ends and the eggs kind of hiding in there. I just use my fingers to kind of close up the gap, and then I'll pull off this little puff. And the same thing over here, I'm going to pull off this little puff. And I know that I won't need more than that. I might even need less. And what I do then is I go just like we did before. If you use something like a 42 triangle, then you're slowly taking up all that slack and tapering it down. And if you really have too much, you can pull it off. But to me, honestly, doing just this initial coloring, if you will, is really like the fun part. It's just so basic and there's not much thought required. It's for me, very soothing thing to do in the evening. So here I feel like maybe I still have a little more than I need. I'm just going to pull that off and then tack this down. And for the base of your egg, especially if you're going to be doing embroidery or any top design, or you're going to be giving children to play with, you really want to needle felt this all down very, very firmly. And this is where our multi-needle tools can really come into play. So I could go over this whole egg with just this little single 42 triangle and be very happy. But we like to use these little cluster rubber bands of a 42 triangle. Well, I've been using mine so much that I find that my fingers get tired of holding it. So I just wrapped mine. You can see the rubber band right there, the green. I wrapped mine with core wool, and then just for fun, I thought, well, I may as well just cover it with yellow lemon peel because it's my yellow needles. So this is nothing more than a rubber banded cluster of 42 triangle needles. And now I'm going to go over my entire egg with very shallow pokes. This needle has very fine little barbs. We call them barbs, but they're really like a scale, like a little notch in it. And you can use just like the first two if you want. You don't need to plunge all the way into your egg. And we're going to come in a little bit closer here because I want to show you how to get from a loose and bumpy, unfinished piece to getting it very, very smooth. Now this is very loose, and I'm going to keep going over the whole thing, and it's going to look a little pocky like this. Very common question for us is, how do I get the needle marks out? So the first thing I want you to think about is, before you even get to what you think is a finishing, make sure nothing is loose. There are some styles of needle felting where the fiber is very loose, like this isn't tacked down at all. So at least you need to go through this ugly bumpy phase, or you'll have tacked it down 100% with a very fine needle, and you'll still have kind of that pocky, bumpy phase. So first you want to get all these fibers interlocked and as much air out as possible, such that if you rough your hand across it, it's not loose, and this is not ready. Like I could pull it apart. So if you could pull it apart, it's not felted all the way. Keep poking at it. Keep poking and do use your fine needles. If you have a longer staple fiber like a New Zealand Corriedale or something else that's a little more wiry, it's not going to be quite as easy to get the same smooth finish. You're going to have to be a little more patient, and then you might have to trim the fibers. But if you use our MC1 batting, you're going to have really great success. Keep poking your piece, and you're going to get to this. So these are really the same critters. This one's just been poked more. And to show you, I left this end right here loose and bumpy. So we want to show you very closely that when you start to get your piece well needle felted, you can rub your fingers across it and see how the fibers neither pill nor rough up nor come off. And I'm telling you, I could personally sit and needle felt this for another while and have plenty of fun just doing that. But this end is not quite finished, and it's felted down, and a lot of people will stop here. See how bumpy it is? A lot of people will stop here and say, how do I get the needle marks out? And I'm going to tell you to keep going. Keep going, because I could rough this up if I want and get those fibers loose. So first, with your multi-tool, tack everything down. If your multi-tool is leaving great big holes, then you make sure you go to a 42 or a 40 triangle or even a 40 spiral if that's all you have. But you've got to get finer first. And then the way you go from this lumpy bumpy to this is just you take your single 42 triangle needle and poke all the sticky uppy parts. Try not to think of getting rid of the holes. Try and think that what you're doing is you're flattening all the bumpy bits. That's the real difference. Now, if you then vary the angle of your needle, so like I'm going in this way, and then I'll turn it and go this way, then what you're going to get is something that's a little more like skin, which has pores in it, but they're so fine that you don't see them. The key becomes shallow angles. You can even go at this like a 15-degree angle, something like that, very, very shallow, right in the surface. And if you have our MC1 batting, there's no reason for it to be hairy. It's just not a hairy fiber. It's very smooth, and you can get a really lovely finish on it, just like this. And it really is just going to take you needle felting down the little bumpy bits. So let's look at a couple of quick decorating ideas for these, and I'll show you how to get some stripes and polka dots and maybe a stripy polka dot too. Polka dots, super easy. Some of you already know how to do them. You don't have to be very skillful. I'll make a pretty decent sized polka dot, like just right here. I'll just put down a blob, that's all you need. Poke in the middle of your blob, about as big as you want your polka dot, and then all the rest is just a twirl. And the twirl gathers in all the fibers from the outside and brings them to the middle. Again, if you're using a longer staple, that's not going to quite work out the same. You really want a short fiber when you do this kind of needle felted surface design. It's just a little bit easier. Pre-felt really doesn't work the same way because pre-felt has cut edges and those edges tend to kind of fray out. But if you work with just a natural fiber like this, then you can just gather in all of those little loose bits. So polka dots are pretty darn easy just by dropping down a blob. But what about a stripy polka dot? By that, I mean like this guy right here, like how to do a stripy polka dot. So we'll start with a blob and needle felt that into a great big dot. So to do a stripy polka dot, basically you're just going to do double dots rather than try and do a line around. It's easier to do a double dot than to do a stripe, if you will. Okay, so this is kind of rough, but then what you do is to make it look like more like a stripe around is you're just going to put another blob right in the middle, and that'll make this whole thing look a little more like a stripe. I need to add a little more on there to make him full. Okay, so that's how you do more like a stripy polka dot. You don't have to do the stripe and get it right. You just do double dots. And these need work. You got to go over them and get them, you know, to lay down flush. But let's look at how to get like a little zigzag effect. Pull off a piece, whether you have roving or our batting, whatever you have, and you want to get it kind of thin, but uniform thickness if you can down the length as much as possible. Okay, so then this is where you want straight pins. So in comes Bunny Butt. We made Bunny Butt last year, her little, her little pin cushion. And what we're going to do is use these pins as little markers to help us get our wool into more of a zigzag shape. So let me just start with 3. And you might have to move them around after the first one. So here we're going to go this one down, and I'm going to tack it down just right underneath that pin. And this is, see, it's wide and loose, but it's going to get gathered as you wrap it. So now you can start to work out a little zigzag pattern, or it's not a chevron, I don't know what you would call it. I just call it a little zigzag pattern. It's kind of like the Charlie Brown effect. Mine may not look as perfect as yours would look, but you don't have to go too far with this. You know, you just kind of get it started, and now you can tack it down and achieve your little zigzag pattern. So you don't have to leave the pins in for too long either. You just want to have your peaks in place. And again, I'm not really a perfectionist. Some of you are much more detailed. But that was a pretty quick and easy way to get your zigzag on, and just by tacking your pins on. So maybe think about some other ways. And now I'm going to end up at my dot, so who knows what. This is a very modern egg. I don't know. He's just got his own thing going on. I just wanted to show you how to make an egg, how to know if it's firm, how to cover it, how to get a really nice smooth finish, what are these needles and tools that we use, and then maybe just how to do a couple of simple designs. And so let's look at turning this thing, you know, how we got this little egg display happening. I'll just show you what I used, and maybe again it'll inspire you to try something on your own too. I wanted my little standy up Easter eggs here and the grass, but couldn't find it, you know, all together. So these Easter eggs are just the little wool Easter eggs. And what I did here was I didn't use an awl or anything. I just used a bare wire, and this is nothing more than an 18 gauge bare floral wire, and I just poked it right into the bottom. Now if you can't do that, if you can't poke it right into the bottom, cut it at a sharper angle if you can, and if your egg collapses, well then it's just too mushy. So you want it to be, if your egg is firm in the core, then you can push this in. If that doesn't work, you could use something like an awl, But you don't want it, an awl is, you know, this really pokey mini ice pick, if you will. You don't want to make the hole too big or your egg will spin around. And if that happens, I suppose you can put some glue on it. But really what we want is just a starter hole for this. And if you do need to put glue on it, then you can. So I've got this started on this bare wire. And then I put them on the green armature wire that we sell here in the shop. So it's really the same 18 gauge cloth covered wire. And when you cut them, just cut your angles really sharp. So in order to get that sharp angle, then angle your cutter so that it's not just straight. So just get the best angle that you can. And I just left these bare. Now you can cover them if you want. You can then wrap wool around them. But since I was just burying them in this little basket, I didn't really worry about that. So once you have, I sort of took my eggs and then I shaped my foam. I'll show you the foam that I used, and then laid out the eggs, and then I put in all of the grass. This is the foam that I chose. There's a couple of kinds of foam. There's the real, this is a real smooth floral foam. So you'll find it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, whatever's your craft store. This one's really smooth and it's also crumbly. They're both crumbly. And the other one is kind of shiny and it's a little more open cell. This is just the one I chose. So to get it into this shape, I had to cut it to fit. And I want to show you how easy it is to mark and shape and cut this foam to suit your needs. So let's say I'm going to try, this bowl is angled, it's tapered, smaller at the bottom and larger at the top. But what you can do is find what's that size that you need and then just trace around whatever vessel you have. And because this stuff is so crumbly, you'll find it's very easy to work with. And then you look here and see I've traced this out. Now I know that it's going to taper more to this, but it's almost like I'll just be able to take off the edges. So here comes the mess. And I've never made one to fit that bowl, but I want to show you how easy this is to cut. And you can just get right in there and cut this away. But it's really easy to cut, and I know it's loud probably. So now this is probably not the right shape, and it's certainly going to be too deep, but here it is, starts to fit in my bowl. And then now we can cut it down. Basically, I wanted to show you this foam to consider. It's just a real leg up for getting started with your piece, and then you can start to shape it to fit. So let me jump over here and show you the ones that I've done, and I'll come back to this obnoxious little thing that I've started and show you how I did the grass. And I'll give you a couple of other ideas for grass. I had a few ideas for grass that I never really got to try because this one actually worked out so well. So here's, I'm going to pull out my little sculpture so you can see it. So I've got these two blocks, and I just rounded them to fit the inside of my bowl, which is, you know, rounded on the front. And I was able just to carve those out, and then the back is flat. To hold them together, I basically just took a piece of this and made a little U staple to hold them together because they kind of wanted to fall apart. So you can just staple your pieces together and get them to hold. And I put all of the eggs in first so that all of those holes were marked, and then I filled in with the grass. Now this grass, I had a tough time finding grass, and the lady at the craft store looked at me like I was kind of on glue. I asked if they had floral grass because I didn't just want raffia or whatever. I was originally going to make grass out of paper. I had a few ways to do that, but instead I bought these big things, and I have no idea how much they cost. This is one. So this represents one of these, and I used every bit of it. In fact, I wanted to show you what was left. This is, it looks like a California palm in a cheap apartment, you know. The fan palm, it's a fan palm now. So this is what it looked like, and this is what it looks like now. I used almost every bit. And all I did was cut this grass off. Like, you can cut multiple blades at a time. Use your craft scissors, don't use your sewing scissors. Cut the blades off, and I knew that some were going to be short and some were going to be long. So fortunately for me, this stuff is really stiff and stands up on its own. And I was able to literally push it right into the foam. So that's all I did was fill in from the back first, fill in around where the eggs are going to go. And then if this part, like if I had cut the grass to be shorter, then that's what I used to fill in the front are all the little stubby extra pieces that I went back and cut and just filled in with all of those scraps. So it's an idea if you don't want to use raffia and you want something that's a little more grassy like this sculpture, is get some floral grass. And you know, I'm sure you could use it in the future for something else. You could change up that display. And let's add my monster egg in here somewhere. We'll just stick him right down the middle. I'll just put him right in there. There's our little added egg. More to add to our Easter decorations. Wire ribbon added. Got to get my hot glue gun in here so that I get them all fixed up. But it's a pretty easy Easter arrangement, don't you think? Pretty simple to do, super fun. Even plain eggs can add a little life and Eastery springness to your room. So if you make these, please tag us on Instagram. We're going to be updating our homepage so we can share what you guys make. Join us in our Facebook group. And if you're looking for next level tutorials, whether it's needle felting or wet felting, and we have some fun new ones coming up, go to feltingtutorials.com, sign up. We have free classes there for needle felting and wet felting, and we have next level lessons there with amazing teachers, wonderful projects. You can have lots and lots of fun.